Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Rachel. I'm an intern here at Carleton, and joining me today is Carleton Rivers. She's a nutritionist, and we're going to talk a little bit about wellness and everything, and how to maintain that in your daily life. So thank you so much for joining me, Carleton. I'm so excited to get to talk to you. Just to start off, how did you get an interest in nutrition? I know that you're now an assistant professor at the university. It looks like you hold a lot of titles. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've always loved food and I've always enjoyed cooking.
Hmm.
So that's been around for a long time. But it was really in high school when I first really started becoming interested in nutrition. I grew up taking ballet, and it became a really big focus of mine in high school. And I realized that the way that I performed and my stamina was really dependent on what I was eating, and how I was snacking throughout the day. That became even more important so after high school, I moved to Nashville and I danced with Nashville Ballet. I was a trainee with them for 2 years. And I learned so much through that process, trying really bad things to do, and figuring out how important a balanced diet was. Because as a professional dancer, you're dancing, 8 hours a day, and so nutrition was a really important part of my day. But then after I danced with Nashville Ballet, I wanted to go to college. So I moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and I studied nutrition at Samford University. And I knew at that point that I wanted to become a dietitian. So I studied there and then went on to do my graduate studies at University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is where I work now.
Well, that's so awesome. That's a really great story too, especially with stamina. I know a lot of athletes and I like a lot of, singers, dancers, all the arts and everything like that get into nutrition because it's
Yeah,
so important for that
it
whole
is.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So then kind of going off of that, do you ever work with people? Do you work with people who are, dancers or things like that with nutrition, or do you work ever with people at Curiognostics? We have a mission of helping people with chronic illnesses.
Yeah.
Do you help people with that kind of, illnesses? And then if you do, what is some of the most common pieces of advice you tend to give them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't do one-on-one counseling anymore. My main focus is teaching. So I do teach. I teach a large number of students each year in it's kind of like a basic nutrition and health course. But I do go to, what I love is I do these little training or workshops at Alabama Ballet for the students in their school. So I go over the summer and I'll do a session with them. I think it was this fall that I went and I sat down with them. And so I really love talking to that group because I definitely relate to them as, they're young dancers, and it's a really challenging balance between, not gaining weight. It's such a, appearance-based art,
Yes.
but also having enough nutrition to feel good, to have that stamina, to not get injured. So I do those workshops, but the biggest thing with those groups is, really building their foundation of knowledge. A lot of people, it's easy to think that what you need to know about nutrition because most of us eat, every day, multiple times a day. But it's really important to, kind of combat some misconceptions about nutrition, and to also, I love to teach how to read a nutrition facts label, how to decipher food labels on packaged products, because it can be so confusing. And these
Yeah.
days there are, drinks out there that are actually dietary supplements, but
Mhm.
they're marketed as, just these flavored drinks or energy drinks, and it's really important to be able to understand how to read the facts on a nutrition label. So those are some of the big things that I talk with those groups about.
Well, that's really cool. And that seems so important too because those are on every single food that we eat. And yet, most of us have no idea, like, what they mean. We maybe look at the carbs and the sugar, and that's about it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So then you said that you kind of work with young students who are growing up and doing ballet, and then in the wellness course you teach. So for young and growing students, especially people in college, what are some common like things that you kind of tell them that are great ways to implement nutrition in their lives? Especially because I know for myself as a college student, it feels really hard to eat healthy sometimes in a college environment.
It does. It does. And, a lot of people have that tough transition of going from family meals to then eating at a cafeteria, and maybe it's, unlimited food items. And it can be very challenging. And so the biggest things that I emphasize are making sure that you have healthy snacks on hand, healthy options in your dorm room, because there's many things that you can, just keep in a mini fridge or pop in a microwave. But having those things on hand so you don't feel like you need to, run out to a fast food if the caf is closed. But then also, when you do go eat at the caf, already identifying those healthier options that you should probably be getting on a regular basis, and then occasionally getting the items that are not the healthiest, like fried chicken or pizza. Trying to keep those in smaller amounts and having more of fruits and vegetables, choosing whole grains. But I think a lot of it is having the awareness of this transition, and recognizing what you have available to you, what you can purchase in your budget. But planning goes a long way for college students.
Yes, I think the more time I spend here in college, I definitely find that is very true.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. So then you kind of talked a little bit about learning nutrition labels, and how hard it is to find that kind of information on the internet that like teaches you properly. So what are some sources that you usually tend to give to your students for finding nutrition information, because there's so much misinformation out there?
There's definitely, and certainly on, social media, there's a lot of people pushing misinformation, pushing supplements. What I teach my students is how to identify a credible source. And so the main thing with that is looking to see who is sharing this information, and is that person qualified to share that information. So it may be an Instagram post by a dietitian or someone else who has that knowledge, but maybe not from a celebrity that's being endorsed by a company. There are great websites through large organizations like the American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association. We also have really wonderful resources through some of our government websites like myplate.gov, or the Food and Drug Administration has a lot of resources on their website. They actually have an interactive web page where it can teach you how to navigate a nutrition facts label.
Wow, that's really cool.
So yeah, those resources are definitely out there, but I think the louder sources, or the people that are being the loudest, are the ones that maybe have more flashy ways of losing weight or getting healthy, and that can be really appealing to consumers. So that's something that you got to watch out for.
Mm-hmm. On that topic a little bit, what is kind of one of the most common misconceptions or myths that you see about nutrition that, like, if there was like one thing you could correct about, what people think of nutrition, what would that be for you?
Yeah, I would say that there's really not one. I have so many in my head right now.
Of course.
But a lot of times we have, good and bad food. And I think that that's an unhealthy way of viewing food. I believe that there is room for a lot of different types of foods in a diet. And when I say diet, I mean just the things that you eat and drink throughout the day. And so I think it's important to, choose, okay, well, most of the time I'm going to choose healthier items. It's not good or bad, it's just those are better for my health. And then I have this portion that, maybe on the weekend when I go out with my friends or for a special occasion, that's when I can, maybe indulge in more of those unhealthier
Yeah.
options. But I think it's tough when, let's use wanting to lose weight as, for an example. So I think it's really tough because we live in a world where we get things really quick and we want it right away. So when it comes to weight loss, we want it right away. But in actuality, the best way to lose weight is to do it slow and steady and to do it by making changes over time. And so evaluating, what do I want to change? What am I ready to change? Instead of doing this big overhaul where, let's say January 1st or January 2nd, you decide to just eat completely different things, work out every day, and then by the end of the week you are so burnt out and everything collapses.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really easy to just dive into those quick fixes,
Yeah.
but it does take time.
No, that makes so much sense, and just consistency and always making sure that you're doing the right things for your body in the right amount of time.
Yeah.
Well, that's so great. To close off our interview here, I gotta ask, because you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you love to cook, and that's kind of where your whole journey started. What is your favorite dish to cook then that you have you recommended to students, or this is your favorite to cook for yourself?
Yeah. So this is really just me and my family. I'm a big soup person. Like I'll eat soup even if it's like 100 degrees outside. I don't know.
I'm
I
right
just
there with you.
So probably once a week I make a chicken tortilla soup
Ooh.
that has a bunch of different veggies in it. Of course, it has chicken, and my family just loves it. And so that's my favorite right now.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm up here in Michigan. We're getting cold weather right now, so that
Oh,
feels even better.
yeah, yeah. You need some of that soup.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for taking time to meet with me today. I really appreciate it. And, on our website and Carenostics, and when we get our app working up here too, we're hoping to implement more of these wellness sources as a great way to help people who suffer with chronic illness or are just keeping track of their medical records to have a better lifestyle overall. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for meeting and talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel. This has been so much fun.
Of course.